Read, nigga, read!
She-Hulk Attorney at Law has to be one of the most controversially talked about MCU shows in recent memory, which is honestly, in my opinion, after watching all 5 of the 9 episodes that are out right now, really unwarranted. Personally, and I already know that this is going to be a very hot take and I'm definitely going to get hate for this, but I'm really loving and enjoying this show so far. The series is an odd, fresh of breath air for the MCU, particularly when it comes to the comedy, because as the MCU gets sillier and sillier with its jokes and its storytelling, the quality noticeably dipped, especially with projects like Thor: Love and Thunder, which felt like the creative team wasn't even trying all that hard with writing out their jokes. However, She-Hulk has probably been the funniest and just the most fun in general the MCU has been in a while, along with shows like Ms. Marvel, with episodes 3 and 4 of the series being the highlights. For me, the show harkens back to the now early days of the Marvel Disney Plus shows before, again, the noticeable dip in quality with shows like What If and Hawkeye. The show also feels like if Darren Star, who helped create Sex and the City, and David E. Kelley, who created Ally McBeal, teamed up to create a new MCU show, which I think works in the show's favor with its very unique, in a sense, style and tone. And instead of the basic, unfunny quips MCU writers have accustomed themselves to writing 24/7, Jessica Gao and the rest of the She-Hulk writing team wrote considerably more subtle / self-aware humor that always gets me to laugh at the very least. Basically, Tatiana referring to She-Hulk as
"Nice suit, Shrek."
The newest episode was more bearable and funnier than the screaming goats gag in Thor: Love and Thunder. And yeah, I'm well aware that the bar for MCU comedy is practically in hell right now, so I'm definitely not trying to say that She-Hulk Attorney at Law is on the same level as a show like Parks and Rec, but the show's humor is so original and funny enough, especially for the MCU, to get a laugh out of me 9 times out of the 10. The characters in this show also really elevate the comedy for me as well. Every actor puts their absolute best foot forward with their respective roles. Tatiana Maslany as the lead superheroine Jennifer Walters aka She-Hulk does a phenomenal job. She completely embodies the character from the comics and brings life and depth into the character, or as much depth there can be in a 30-minute episode. Jennifer, being the first hero to break the 4th wall in the comics before Deadpool was even created, breaks the 4th wall in the show, but not as often or to the insane degree that I would have liked, but they're still very funny. And while still talking about her, Jen having a twerk off with Megan Thee Stallion that blew up Twitter for like a couple of days was not as cringy or as horrible as some of y'all are saying it is, in my opinion, and again was blown way out of proportion and is actually completely in character for Jennifer Walters. And if you don't believe me, I suggest you go read some of John Byrne's run of the character, where She-Hulk has done some definitely more wild stuff. As for the other cast members, Ginger Gonzaga and Josh Segarra are great as She-Hulk's closest friends and co-workers, Nikki and Pug, who are also just a great dynamic duo, especially in episode 5. And Jamila Jamil, love her or hate her, she's doing a hilarious job playing the semi-superpowered and mega superstar influencer Titania. Her fashion is also so campy it helps elevate her performance to a whole nother level in my opinion, making her one of my favorite MCU antagonists to come out of Phase 4 so far. It was also just great to see Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner aka Smart Hulk again, who I don't hold as much disdain for compared to many other people out there. I really do just love the fact that this show's first 2 episodes was kind of a loophole to further Bruce's storyline into a World War Hulk direction and to overall spend more time with him, which we usually can't do due to Marvel's deal with Universal Pictures. Wong is truly the glue that keeps the MCU interconnected at this point, but it's nice that he actually gets to stick around for a while and actually has a storyline, especially in the later episodes of the series. And Patty Guggenheim as
Madison with 2 N's, 1 Y, but it's not where you think.
is also laugh out loud hilarious, making her way up as an MCU MVP. I do think the sitcom-y style and tone of the show also works for and against the show, because as of right now, each episode has been about 30 minutes without credits each. For the positives, I really do love how episodic the show is, and surprisingly, like the actual She-Hulk comics, doesn't necessarily have a real overarching storyline throughout the entire show as of right now, and is really self-contained and very focused on world building, which fixes a big problem I've had with recent MCU projects, as there's always seems to be some random world-ending disaster that needs to be stopped and is added just to create stakes for the characters, whether it be in Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, Eternals, or Love and Thunder. But in She-Hulk, it's very clear that it's going to be a superhero attorney sitcom, with his biggest villain as of right now being a vapid, superpowered influencer, which is a nice and much needed change of pace. For the negatives, sometimes the show tries to delve into very deep themes about women in the workplace, the politics of high-priced private law firms, and other topics that it only really scratches the surface of, but it doesn't have that type of time to really flesh those topics out. Jen's monologue about how she controls her anger in episode 1.
Well, here's the thing, Bruce. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. When I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it pretty much every day, because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult, or I might just literally get murdered. So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you.
Was not necessarily a bad monologue, and she never technically stated anything wrong or devalued Bruce's experience as Hulk in any way. But due to the lack of time, depth, and the fact that many fandoms have a large and potent subsections of racists and misogynists, that's a whole different conversation though, it got taken wildly out of context. This lack of time also damages how some people perceive Jennifer as a character and as a superhero, and it's clear that her total contempt for most people is based on confidence issues and how she sees herself as her regular self compared to when she's in She-Hulk form, struggling between being perceived as a human or a jade-tinted monster, taken directly from the comics. It affects her work life and her life as an attorney and her dating life. And again, this show just doesn't have that type of time to properly pin that point down. I also think the 30-minute runtime just doesn't do the court scenes any favors, which I'll admit are pretty unrealistic and undercooked, so to speak, with Jessica Gao even saying the writers didn't know how to write court scenes. But I'll give it a pass for right now, because considering the show overall is about a woman who can shapeshift into a giant green Amazon, reality has already been thrown out the window at this point, especially considering this is the MCU. But circling back, Jessica Gao and most of her writing team actually came from Rick and Morty, having written one of the show's most infamous episodes, Pickle Rick. So considering their collective writing style and how this show, like Rick and Morty, doesn't regularly operate on a 3-act structure or has an overarching season-long storyline, I finally put it together that Jessica Gao and her writing team probably thought they were going to be adapting John Byrne's campy and outrageous She-Hulk run from the 80s, where she'd go on wild adventures ranging from marrying the Mole Man to save the world, to battling Spragg the Living Hill, or journeying into the center of the Earth, which are more in line with their writing and their work from past projects. But Kevin Feige duped them into adapting more of Dan Slott's more lawyer work focused run. And the show is unfortunately paying for it with the overwhelmingly negative reception from the fan base. And as for the CGI and VFX, which has also been a big argument against this show, I really don't want or have anything incredibly negative to say in my opinion, due to the fact that Marvel's VFX workers are now infamously known for being criminally overworked and underpaid. So I personally wouldn't feel right ripping into the genuinely hard work these VFX artists put into the show, knowing what conditions they are working under. And the fact that it's also that I'm just not a VFX snob in general, unless the CGI is like incredibly and noticeably bad. But She-Hulk's VFX are perfectly fine and okay, in my personal opinion, certainly as good as Hulk's VFX in the show. And while the show is certainly on a budget, The CGI is good enough to get the job done, so they don't hold the show back any more than any other flaw the show has. Also, to the credit of the VFX artists, unlike the Hulk and Abomination who already had their CGI molds done and finalized for use in future projects, the artists had to build She-Hulk's mold from scratch for this one show alone as of now, so really all respect to them. Overall, I really can't help but enjoy this show, as like most of the MCU shows I've seen. They're all incredibly fun to watch and to talk about during their respective runs, but it does suck that this show is now the face of so many anti-feminist hate channels and called things like woke garbage pretty much unprovoked and taken completely out of context, which as of now is sadly going to be the baggage this show can't overcome. But I am still very excited to continue the series and to see where Jennifer's character develops from here, as I think out of all the new heroes introduced in Phase 4 of the MCU, Tatiana Maslany as She-Hulk has the most potential in my opinion to really be a heavy hitter for the MCU going forward, because she really just is She-Hulk. And of course, I am ecstatic to see how they handle the Man Without Fear, Daredevil himself. Also, again, this show just desperately needs longer episodes to really pin down the points the writers want to make and to just get more accomplished in general. And I know I'm still a small creator on this platform, so I don't really expect to break through the noise of hate, but I'm very content in knowing that I at least tried. So that was my review for She-Hulk Attorney at Law. What did you think? What did you think of the show so far? And what did you think of this video? Share all your thoughts and comments down below in the comment section. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And also follow my Instagram so you never miss the latest updates on when videos of mine are coming out. And to also just like and admire some fan art of mine that I regularly post on there. Some of that should be showing up on the screen right now. Alright, that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching.
In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the people are protected by two separate yet equally important groups. The heroes who save them and the attorneys who clean up their collateral damage. But only one can be both. This is her story. Dun dun.